Chapter 8. Although there is at least one hospital closer to our home than Methodist Hospital in St. Louis Park, I do not recall us discussing where we were going to take Jenny. It felt like common sense to take her back to where the treatment had begun. Barb stopped to pick me up on the way to the hospital. As our home is literally only 3 blocks off the path, she had to drive directly to the hospital. We arrived at the emergency room. Jenny was admitted immediately, and the doctors began to make their assessments. After some time, a doctor came in to relay his conclusions based on the tests and examinations, go over the plan of action they were proposing, and to answer any questions. The doctor sat down and very patiently and clearly explained all aspects of the situation. He made sure all of our questions were answered, but also encouraged conversation to be sure that we had a chance to process what he told us, as new questions were bound to come up, and indeed they did. The conclusion was that Jenny was having an allergic reaction to the Keppra, not simply having a hard time adjusting to it as previously thought. For a week we had been witnessing behavior we knew was very odd for Jenny. Changes that were so severe it was as if she had developed an entirely new personality. Yet even if a stranger actually saw the behavior, it would be difficult to explain it as being out of character for Jenny. This trend continued in the emergency room. During the doctor's visit, Jenny sat in her bed and appeared to be listening very intently to everything he had to say. She even asked a few intelligent questions. The doctor did a great job of including all 3 of us in the discussion, making sure all of us were clear on what was happening and understood what the plan was. He concluded with the statement, "So are there any other questions?" Jenny immediately responded, rather harshly, "I don't mean to be rude, but can you please get a doctor in here that can explain what is going on?" There was an awkward silence, and the doctor looked between Barb and me in surprise. He may have easily excused Jenny's response as part of her being confused by the allergic reaction to the medication, but I believe he interpreted our silence as confirmation that we agreed with Jenny. After a moment, he very professionally excused himself, saying that he would have another doctor come in and explain everything again. What I imagine he did not realize was that Barb and I were stunned into silence. While to the doctors Jenny's behavior might have appeared a normal, albeit very rude reaction to not understanding what was happening, we knew it was completely out of character for Jenny. The true and healthy Jenny would have asked as many questions as it took to understand, or at least that she was comfortable asking. When the doctor had asked if we had any more questions, she would have either asked more questions or allowed the doctor to leave and then turn to us for clarification on what she didn't understand. The Jenny we know would have never said what she did. None of the explanations or literature about the adjustments to Keppra, nor the newly diagnosed allergic reaction spoke to the personality changes we were witnessing. Sure enough, the previous doctor sent in the emergency room chief of staff. He dutifully went through the same conclusions and plans. This time Jenny produced no inappropriate outbursts. I asked the doctor if I could join him in the hallway, which he agreed to, and we both stepped out of the room. I had intended him to ask him some questions, but suddenly my fatigue, combined with the stress of everything I had seen over the past week, compounded by the unnatural outburst Jenny had just exhibited, took over. Surprising even myself, I began to cry nearly uncontrollably. I tried to speak through my sobbing, and honestly my embarrassment. "That is not my daughter in there," I said. "There is something else wrong. I don't know what, but this has to be something more than an allergic reaction to a medication." I pulled out the digital voice recorder and asked him to listen to a portion of what Jenny had sounded like the night before. The very busy doctor was patient and tried to be consoling. However, deep down, I knew, even as we were standing there in the hallway, that he believed me to be an overly concerned, out-of-control father. He very professionally told me what he believed I needed to hear, and acted as if I believed he had taken me seriously and was doing more than giving me lip service. Then I let him go on his way. He was not interested in listening to the recording I had made. Once again, I had failed to convince somebody of what I knew with my entire being to be true. This was the point that I gave up trying to explain it to doctors. Part of the plan of action included that Jenny would stay in the hospital to begin the process of switching from her Keppra to a different anti-seizure medication. I hoped during this hospital stay someone would eventually see what I was seeing. When and how this would happen, I have no idea, but I was convinced that they would see it for themselves very soon and figure it out. Then this would all be over in just a few days. Later that afternoon, Jenny was admitted as a patient into Methodist Hospital. She was taken to the 6th floor where the neurological patients are treated and is affectionately referred to as 6 Neuro by the staff. It would be 74 days before Jenny would sleep anywhere other than a hospital bed.